Hey everybody, my name is Paul Esden Jr., aka Boy Green. I'm the New York Jets digital reporter for Heavy.com. Welcome to my YouTube channel, youtube.com/BoyGreen25. We've been on an epic run the last week. Hopefully you guys have enjoyed the guests like Jordan Reed, Austin Gale, so many others like Bruce Feldman, and so many others that have been really cool here on the channel, and so much more. But I think this is a great way to make a change this week, and we're speaking with the architect, the face of the franchise, quite frankly, for TOJ, the Badlands family. Let's bring him in. His name is Joe Caporoso, of course. Again, co-host of the Badlands feed, and I say feed because there's podcasts and articles, and of course, what we're talking about today, the 2022 Badlands Draft Guide 2.0 dropped, and Joe, it's a beautiful baby. We're here to talk about and preview it for some of the fans and everything else. And recap it, quite frankly, because it is out. Everyone can go grab that now on patreon.com. Wow, Joe. Wow.
It's an exciting day. And, Connor and the team did an amazing job. They've been working like crazy on this the past few months, and happy we could get it out with about 10 days to spare or so to get everyone properly prepared for the NFL draft. And I think, like you said, it's really a whole different beast this year compared to where we were at last year, thanks to some amazing handiwork from Dan Eason and putting together a product that I think really rivals like what you see on The Ringer or the version that Danny Kelly puts out. Very meant to be a lot more interactive and easier to toggle through, which is good when you have 4 picks in the top 40 and there's a lot of different things to be looking at.
No question. So I'm going to show people. This is from last year. Okay, we put in a nice little fold out. I had it during the draft so I could thumb through it. And again, when I looked at this, again, this is the Badlands Draft Guide from last year, folks. And when I looked at this, I said, "Wow, you know what? This is great. This is exactly what I need. There's player profiles in here, color pictures. I mean, it's phenomenal. It's great." And then when you guys see it, again, if you're not a subscriber to Badlands, you should be already. Make sure you subscribe. It's worth the price of admission solely for the draft guide alone if you're going to join at that $5 membership level. But that, to me, I'm going to be honest, Joe, I don't normally swear on this show, but my first reaction was, holy shit. That was the difference between this, which I thought was good, and just the quality, the player profiles, the player comps, the outlay. That to me, the design outlook was phenomenal. There's just an obvious it and wow factor to all of this, Joe.
Yeah. It's meant to be a lot more interactive and easier to sort of move around between the different positions, the overarching big board. And there's just so many different directions the Jets can go with these 4 picks that this version of it should allow an ability to kind of quickly find and figure out which path you like the best. And then when they actually do make the picks, cast a wide enough net to have a reference point for the 4 players to add in the top 40. If it ends up being 4 players or 3 players or 6 players, you never know with the trades. But it's a unique scenario with the Jets over the past couple of years to have this many high picks. Hopefully not a scenario we're dealing with next year or the year after. But for this year, great to see how deep they were able to go. 150 scouting reports, a top 150 big board. I think some really interesting player comparisons that we're getting really good feedback on Twitter. And the guys just did a good comprehensive job at diving deep into so many different positions, beyond the work that Connor and Dan did. We had Mike Megan and Greg Armstrong, who also contributed last year, working through those scouting reports. Connor's been running them through a pretty exhaustive process over the past 30 to 45 days or so. So hopefully whomever the Jets do draft, especially early on, you will be able to find in reference here, unless they do something very surprising.
Which is always possible if you are the New York Jets. 2 things first here for people to understand. There are a million draft guides out there. This is specifically centric on New York Jets team needs and the players that matter. Connor, I think, talked about this on a previous Badlands episode. He didn't have to waste time talking quarterback because there's no reason to. The Jets aren't looking at quarterback. So this isn't just an overall top 150 prospects. Here they all are. Here's how he thinks about them. This is centric to the New York Jets. And I guess the thing that I'll go over to what Connor kind of teased in that cool video, which is another part of this process that, again, expands beyond this, as he was kind of teasing and talking about it, was, again, the next level of this and really taking it to, like I said, an unbelievable level. And one of the cool things for me that's in this draft guide that really, I think, stands out from a lot of the other just kind of Jets draft guides that are really out there to me is some of those again, the interactiveness going from player profile to player profile and kind of working through this. Actually, I want to take a step back here, Joe. Would you have ever thought that Badlands, you would have over 2,000 patrons? You would have a second version of a draft guide that is interactive to this level. You have weekly podcasts. You have your audio docu-series where really this baby even started, quite frankly, before you've expanded out to this. I guess let me ask it at that foundational level. Would you, if I would have told you all of this information that you guys have reached this level, would you have ever thought this was possible?
Look, I wouldn't say necessarily. I think I'm very pleasantly surprised at how quickly it's grown and expanded. I think, Connor and I, the initial thought was to do this sort of just one-off 10-part docuseries about why the Jets have been so bad for so long. And the feedback was so positive that we just wanted to keep building on it. And fortunately, it's not hard for us to stay in a weekly rhythm of doing podcasts. We've been talking about the Jets together for so long. We can pick it up pretty quickly and riff and come together with a pretty good product. And, the draft guide has been Connor's, brainchild, and to see it expand this much by year 2 is really exciting. And I think it lays the groundwork for a lot of the different stuff that we can do going forward beyond the audio, beyond the video, beyond some of the articles that we do. We dabbled a little bit with some merch and some events, and it's been fun to see it expand. I mean, I was doing, TOJ for 9, 10, 11 years, and I think it was definitely time to try something different and mix and match a little bit, and to get that monthly subscriber base up where it is right now before the draft even hits is really flattering, and it's fun. And it's neither of our, full-time jobs. It's something we do on the side, for fun, because we like talking Jets and blowing off steam talking Jets like crazy people. But it's been really cool to see this become a component of it, which is not something we initially conceived.
All right, let's take a peek forward, and then we'll come back and we'll just talk some Jets and draft as we're kind of getting ready for this thing. I guess a future question: what's next for Badlands? Again, I'm still satisfied right now with the present, with the 2022 draft guide, but I can't help but see that monumental quantum leap. I hope we can only see that from Zach Wilson next season. ZachWilsonIsGood.com. But I mean, what's next? What's coming up?
Well, look, we'll be all over their actual picks. Quick initial reaction, grades on what their actual draft class is. We'll do similar to what we did last year, a 3 or 4-part docuseries, doing a deeper dive with interviews into all of the people they select so we can get to know them that much better. Connor will get back into the rhythm of doing some of his film breakdowns, both on the new draft picks and some of the team's free agent additions in that sort of dry period between the draft and when training camp starts. And then as we get back into training camp, season preview series, likely a multi-part series, diving deep on Zach Wilson and his expectations for year 2. And we'll come up with some shape or form of an event or a viewing party and a couple other different partnerships, I think, as the season gets a little closer to go with what we already do with Tap RM. So just trying to expand step by step, continue to stay really consistent with what we do every week over week. That's still the most important thing, ensuring that there's a handful of new content coming out every week, whether that's an article, to go with the podcast, to go with sort of a quick interview, to go with some of the Zoom stuff we did. Keeping that consistent drip, even when it gets a little quieter, which it won't be obviously the next month or so, is going to be the focus.
All right, let's talk a little draft and have a little fun here. Again, the Jets have 4 picks in the top 38. We'll see if they keep them or move around the chessboard or have any level of regression. But, Joe, what is your dream draft? What is, if they stay at 4, 10, 35, and 38, what do they walk away with in your mind that'll have you and Connor popping into the bubbly on the Badlands draft recap?
I mean, look, I think for me, I'd like to see them just go KT at 4. I think he's a guy that a lot of us thought was the best player in the draft, him or Hutchinson when the season ended. I think he's probably been in the spotlight for a little too long. And I still, when all this comes back around, I think he will be a top 5 pick, and they badly need an edge rusher. I also have no problem with them going at Quando at 4. I understand some fans' hesitancy for it. I would prefer to go him over a guy like Sauce Gardner if KT is not on the board. At number 10, I think you got to get your wide receiver. I don't know if Garrett Wilson is going to be there. It sounds like at that point it's a 2-person race between Drake London and Jameson Williams. It seems like there's a lot of steam going on between the Jets and Jameson Williams, and I understand it based on the skill set and Zach Williams' arm strength. Obviously, there are concerns about his availability for the beginning of the season and a front office that needs to start winning football games. So I think getting the pass rusher at 4 and the receiver at 10, and then at 35 and 38, having the flexibility to look at addressing the secondary, maybe making your depth addition for offensive line then, I think are both intriguing pathways to go. I also think it's very much on the table, depending on how the board breaks, that they can take a pick at 4 and 10 and then package 35 and 38 to move back into the first round and leave with 3 players. Maybe that's a scenario where you take Ekwonu at 4, you take Jermaine Johnson at 10, and then you trade and move up to 15 or 16 to get either Treylon Burks or Williams or one of the receivers who falls. I think the Jets have these picks to be that aggressive if they need to be, and they can't risk, in my mind, ignoring receiver in the first round and getting the best of what's left over at 35 and 38 with how much of a need that position still is.
All right, let's get to this nugget. This drop from Peter Schrager on Monday, April 18th. He said that, again, Kayvon Thibodeau met with the Jets over the weekend, and he said that meeting, I heard it went awesome. It was spectacular, and he said he would not be shocked if KT ends up being the 4th overall pick. So fingers crossed, let's ride. They're getting Kayvon Thibodeau as well. I want to share a nugget with you, Joe, that I heard, and it almost made me spit out my drink, quite frankly. Russell Brown, NFL draft analyst, does a lot of work with Woodward Sports and a couple others, Woodward Sports and a couple others, and he said something he heard in passing conversation with a draft source was that the Jets love Jameson Williams, and we just hinted at that. But at number 4, and I went, number 4? There's been a little bit of smoke, a little bit, from Mel Kiper's The World and others about the Jets possibly taking a wide receiver at 4. And Russell told us on the radio show last week that, again, the fear is that he won't be there at 10, and they want him for Zach Wilson. Again, this Tyreek Hill speed, vertical element they want to add to the passing game. How stunned would you be, and would you put any stock into that whatsoever, or is that just complete hogwash?
I mean, look, I don't think it's fully out of the question. I think they are very desperate to get Zach Wilson help. And if they have Jameson Williams ranked that highly above the other receivers and really think he won't be there at 10 and they're not in love with what the options are at 4, let's say both KT and Ekwonu go in the top 3, which could happen, I don't think it's shocking. I think they would go receiver before they went corner. Now, is it concerning to take a guy with injury concerns like that, especially in year 1? Yeah, they'll probably take some heat for the pick. Now, that won't matter if he comes on in the back half of the year and by 2023 is easily the best receiver in the class, which may be the case, may not be the case. I think Garrett Wilson has a good claim to being the best receiver in the class as well. But I wouldn't totally write it off. I understand the desire to have a pure speed threat to go with Zach Wilson. It's part of why they were so interested in Tyreek Hill. It's part of why they're still sniffing around other veteran options. I don't know if any of them are necessarily likely to happen, but they're certainly in the mix and doing their diligence still on guys like DK Metcalf and Debo. So we'll see how it shakes out.
No, that's all right. And let me ask you this. The Jets obviously have tried to be incredibly aggressive at wide receiver, Tyreek Hill and others, and trying to do a lot of those kind of moves. Does that tell you that the Jets don't want a rookie and they want someone who could come in from day one and immediately help? Or is it just they were just trying to do that? They still like the wide receiver class, and if that's an option as well.
I don't think it necessarily means they don't like the class. I think it was a unique opportunity that Hill's available. It could be a unique opportunity that Metcalf or Debo or A.J. Brown are available, or Terry McLaurin. You got to do your diligence on these opportunities. That's why you have cap space and picks. And really, they're a team that needs 2 additions to their group of receivers. If you look at what the depth chart was last year, all they've done since the offseason started is lose Jamison Crowder and not bring back Keelan Cole to date. So right now, your depth chart is Corey Davis, who missed half the season last year, Elijah Moore, who missed 6 or 7 games last year. We all love Elijah Moore. I think he's going to be great, but he did miss a third of the season last year. Braxton Berrios, who you probably want more in sort of a backup depth role rather than a starter. And then Jeff Smith and Denzel Mims, and you can't really count on those 2 guys for anything. So they don't just need 1 addition to their group of receivers. They really need 2 because if you're going to be running a lot of 3 receiver sets, you need better depth than that they have. So I don't think it's out of the question that, they could acquire a veteran, whether it's as aggressive as some of the offers we've been hearing, and still draft someone, although maybe more in the middle rounds to go with it. And if they don't trade for someone, I wouldn't be surprised if they double dipped at receiver. You could see them take a receiver in the first round, in the third round, first round, in the fourth round. Something like that, because they really do need 2 more meaningful additions to that positional group, because you just can't, as great as it's looked with Denzel Mims working out, he has 0 touchdowns in 2 years. You just can't count on him being a major contributor this year.
All right, let's go to the other side. We talked about, scenarios that would have you and Connor singing sweet praises, singing songs, I'm sure. What about the other side? What would make you and Connor go on there with vehement aggression, that you would be smashing things? Anyone, first, second round, doesn't matter. Who are players on your hit list that you would just be immediately angry about?
Look, I think we talked about this a little last week, considering a guy like Penning at 10, which there's been some rumblings about. I feel like that would be a major reach. And if you're going to take an offensive lineman very early, it better be because Ekwonu fell to you at 4. Or maybe something really surprising happens, like Evan Neal falling at 10. Taking Penning at 10 would be really concerning. I understand the hype and excitement about Trayvon Walker. I also understand he may go number 1. I'm not sold that is the move for the Jets at number 4. And I think a lot of fans kind of feel the same way. I think they're going to get some Quentin Copels and some more interior defensive line flashbacks, even though that's not fully fair to Walker, who could very much develop into a dominant edge rusher. I don't know. That lack of production could be concerning. So that sort of Walker, Penning, 4-10 combination, I think would be troubling. Waiting on receiver until the second round. Like I like a guy like George Pickens, but I think he's had 1,300 yards over the last 3 years and has had some serious injury concerns. And if that's your only answer as your third starter, that's a risky route to go. I also don't know if he'll necessarily even be there at 35 or 38. The Jets are planning to be that patient at receiver. So I think the Jets have not been shy about making it abundantly clear that they view their top 2 needs as edge rusher and receiver. And I think you got to be really aggressive in filling those needs early in the draft and not get too cute and not do the trade down and hope your guy's still there like they did when they ended up with Denzel Mims as their mid-round receiver instead of a Van Jefferson or Gabriel Davis, who did go a little later. But you kind of picked the wrong mid-round receiver out of the bunch there and can't have that happen again.
Definitely not. All right, let's go to this. For Badlands, you released 2 7-round mock drafts. You cheeky bastard. You being aggressive and doing all that love stuff. I love it. One had no trades, one had trades. And I want to kind of use that as a basis for this. You spent a lot of time with our good buddy Connor Rogers, who's obviously the architect of this wonderful draft guide. Has he said any names that no one else is talking about? I saw some names in there. I said, oh, that looks like a Connor Rogers guy in the mid to late rounds. So maybe he's been whispering in your ear and has been making you think as you're putting some of these mock drafts together. You guys spending time together? Is there any prospects he's been talking about that you've just jumped on board with inevitably?
I mean, I wouldn't say there was any particular name there that I was tipped off to include. I mean, there may have been some positive rumblings on some of those late round names that happened to make their way into the draft. I do know that, and I don't think we're the only people who've been hearing this. The Jets have been doing a lot of work on centers in this class, and I don't know if that's necessarily going to be Linderbaum in a trade-up scenario if he falls further. I would watch center for the Jets in round 2 and in round 3 potentially. I think they're doing a lot of homework on those guys. I do think they will take a defensive tackle. I'm not sure it will be with a top 40 pick. I think it will be with a 3rd or 4th round pick. They're doing a lot of work there as well. Keep an eye on the guys that they got a lot of time with at the Senior Bowl. Though they had that much level of exposure to them. I flagged a couple of them in these mocks. So those are a couple of different things I would keep an eye on. And look, I still wouldn't fully write off a veteran trade happening. I don't think it's likely per se, and I wouldn't be, staring at Schefter's Twitter feed every 6 seconds right now, but I wouldn't say it's fully off the table. You have guys like Debo sitting out OTAs until the contracts are signed for these new receivers, and there's a lot of them. There's still options of them being traded.
Joe, let me go to that. So are you a complete buyer in the fact that they were legitimately looking at Ryan Jensen? And if so, for the aggression, as you were just talking about, center in the draft, would they select one and immediately cut McGovern? Do they give him the Jameson Crowder treatment and cut his contract in half because he doesn't have many guarantees and keep him on as internal depth? What's kind of your thought process there? And are you buying that reported interest in free agency at the center spot?
Yeah, no, look, I think if Jensen was out there, they had interest in him. I think for the right player, they would have been aggressive at upgrading center. I think it's going to depend. If Linderbaum falls into that 25 to 32 range and they move up and grab him, I think he's a day 1 starter. Now, if you take a guy day 2, I think they'll hold on to McGovern and maybe sort of having a gradual transition. I think this is likely McGovern's last year with the team. So I think they're looking for who is their starting center long-term post 2022. So I think that makes it a position to keep an eye on. If you take a guy in the 25 to 35 range, I think you probably view him as a starter year 1. If it's later than that, I think they'll let them, have a year on the bench developing before they move into the starting lineup.
All right, Joe, let's finish where we started. Let's plug people back in. The reason why we've gathered us two together here for this video stream is because of the 2022 Badlands Guide. Say anything. This is your open platform to say anything you'd like about the guide. Certainly lead people where they can purchase it, become a subscriber, and thus get the draft guide through that. Give us any details we may have missed as well on the draft guide you'd like to share.
Well, look, it's available at patreon.com/BadlandsTOJ. That's where all of our content is available. The way we designed it this year is that you could download it and view it when you're offline. It's built to be very mobile friendly, so easy to look at on your phone. You don't have to just look at it at a desktop. Beyond that, you're going to get a follow-up podcast discussing it more in depth this week with me, Connor, and Dan, which we're going to record tonight and drop tomorrow, or for when you guys listen to this today, it should be out. And then we'll have our initial draft coverage and a ton of content coming in, and podcasts, video, articles, week to week, and we're not planning on slowing down at all compared to what we did last year. And it's been really fun to see the community go. I think we have over 2,100 subscribers right now. I don't think there's any reason that can't continue to grow. So it's just patreon.com/BadlandsTOJ.
Well, Joe, congratulations on putting all this together. I know it's not just you. I know it's not just Connor. You got a great team there, and Connor did a good job of talking about that both in the video and you did, obviously, during the stream. And as a subscriber to Badlands, it's been such an amazing kind of couple of years here, and I can't believe how far it's growing. Thanks for taking the time, and I can't highly recommend it myself for people to make sure they subscribe to Badlands and jump on the draft guide. It is must-read material. It was last year, and I hope it is for many years to come for all the Jet fans. Thanks, man, for taking the time.